When we made a video on the GAC GN6 in the past, we said that it is a pretty good MPV, one that can go up against the likes of the current champion, the Toyota Innova. Now that we have the new version of the GN6, now with a new name, is it still a good car given its price? This is the 2024 GAC M6 Pro in the top-of-the-line GL trim. Let's see just how good this MPV is. So from the outside, the GAC M6 Pro didn't really change too much compared to its GN6 version, the older version. They did give it a couple of updates. So for example, your grille, that's a little bit updated now. It looks a little bit blingier. You have LED headlights over here with LED DRLs. And over at the side, it still maintains the exact same proportions, the exact same panels even. But you now have a new rim design. And these look so much better compared to before. And they are wrapped in a set of Michelin Primacy 3 ST tires. As much as I want to talk about a lot of the things here on the side, there really isn't too much. Although for this GL trim, you do get privacy glass here on the second and third row windows. For the rear end of the M6 Pro, you don't really get much here either, aside from like a small wing on the top as well as a light bar. But aside from that, it's pretty much just like the front and the side. It's about as MPV as it gets. It's a little bit on the bland side, but there is a 270T badge right here. And if you know a lot of Chinese cars with these badges, that pertains to your torque because this has 270 Newton meters, but we'll get to that later. Now, once you open up this tailgate, which is not powered by the way, space is honestly pretty impressive. You can really put serious luggage over here, even without folding down these rear seats. But if you do fold them down, it increases your space so much more, and the mechanism is pretty clever. Compared to the likes of the Toyota Innova, for example, which has the ancient mechanism of folding over to the side, which isn't good for wider items. This one, just take a look at this. You can come a little bit closer here. So you just fold down these two seat backs, then there is a handle by the bottom which you pull, it releases, then now you can tumble the entire thing towards the floor, giving you not only a fully flat loading area, but also a pretty wide loading area. So when it comes to MPVs, powertrain-wise, usually they're not exactly great, right? They're not really exciting. But what you get with the M6 Pro is the exact same engine that you would get with the GAC GS3 M Zoom, the M-Cool, as well as the GAC M-Pow, which in itself is pretty impressive. So this is a 1.5-liter turbocharged gasoline engine, making 176 horsepower and 270 Newton meters of torque. And if you compare this to the old GN6, which used a 6-speed automatic, which was also jerky, by the way, this now uses a 7-speed wet-type DCT. As for fuel economy, you're looking at around 9 kilometers per liter inside the city and 14.2 kilometers per liter on the highway. Moving now inside, first we check the door. It just sounds about okay. So interior-wise, they've really updated the dashboard design compared to the GN6. My biggest complaint with the GN6 is that the steering wheel is a little bit offset. I forgot if it was to the right or to the left, but you felt kind of twisted when you're driving it, right? But now with the new dashboard, it's proper center now, so you can easily drive without feeling pretty awkward. Now this dashboard, yes, it's not really covered in a lot of soft touch materials. This is like hard plastic, but yeah, that feels pretty well built, and there are still some soft padding here by the center. The same goes for the doors. The top of it is hard, but wherever your elbows and your arms would touch, that is soft touch material. The steering wheel is also leather wrapped, and you still do get lots of buttons over here because this GL trim comes with a full suite of advanced driver assistance systems. So this includes your adaptive cruise control, your lane keeping assist. Now the screen setup here too, you got a dual screen setup. So you have a 7-inch digital instrument cluster, very similar to what you would get with the M-Pow as well. And this center screen, it's a 10.25-inch touchscreen, which comes with wired Apple CarPlay and CarLife, but no Android Auto. So for Android users out there, that's a little bit of a bummer. But this is now updated to run the latest OS of GAC, which is pretty similar to what you would get again with the M-Pow, M-Zoom, as well as the M-Cool. This center stack too, it looks so much better now. You have a very futuristic shifter, very similar to what you'd find with the GS8. You have a USB-C port, USB-A port. You have an electronic parking brake with auto hold and 3 drive modes: Eco, Normal, and Sport. Eco Comfort and Sport rather. 2 center cup holders here, a jug holder on the side, and on top you even have a big panoramic sunroof. Now exclusive also to this GL trim includes 8 speakers compared to only 4 in the lower trim, leather seats, and power adjustments for the driver's side too. Entering the second row of seats too isn't too bad, even for elderly people, because you don't really have to hop in the car too much. You kind of just slide your bum into it. But anyway, now that we're back here, first we check the door. Okay, now that sounds nice. That's better than the front door. So when you're back here, space is really good. And if you haven't noticed already, this is one of the main selling points of the M6 Pro. You get captain seats, which is pretty rare for a car of its price range, right? And these seats, they also slide forwards and backwards, and you can even recline them and they go pretty far back. You even have like these butterfly ears for the headrest so your head don't fall on either side when you fall asleep. And you also have armrests on both sides. There's a little bit of an awkwardness here though. It's that when you have these armrests down, especially the one on the left, and you want to exit the vehicle, for example, yeah, that kind of gets in the way. So just remember to put your armrest out before you exit the vehicle. Also, an interesting thing that this car has, which we also saw in the GN6 before, is the footrest that is integrated right here. So that makes you it just adds a little bit more comfort for your calves when you're seated here for longer journeys. But yeah, that aside, space is really good, not just for legroom, but also for headroom. And you even have your own fan controls over here, plus a USB-A port. There's even a USB-A port here on the side too, as well as 2 cup holders. Now that we're here at the third row of seats, it's pretty impressive too, because the seats, they actually feel pretty comfortable. Like, you would expect these third row seats to be just add-ons, right, for children. But this one, there's enough thigh support, actually more than enough thigh support. The seats themselves feel pretty thick too, so it really is a comfortable place to be. Can you see 3 people back here? Well, it's not gonna be the most comfortable out there, but it is definitely still more than doable. And for legroom, this second row seat is set to a comfortable position, and I have like 6-7 inches of legroom, and for headroom, a little bit more, like 8 inches or so. I'm only 5'6" short though, but still, this is really impressive even for an MPV. And not only that, these 2 second row seats even have their own map pockets too. Where have you seen that ever? In what car do third row passengers get their own map pockets? Really impressive. On the side, you even get a USB-A port, on both sides rather, and you also benefit from that privacy glass, and you even get curtain airbags here up to the third row of seats. So now we drive the GAC M6 Pro GL, and driving this car is pretty surprising because usually you would expect a lot of MPVs to be pretty boring to drive, right? But this one is actually slightly exciting to drive. There's a lot of power on tap, and there's also a lot of torque. And as you can see right now, I am cornering it over a bend, and it still handles surprisingly well. I mean, sure, there will still be a lot of body roll because of the size of it and the weight of it, right? But insofar as MPVs are concerned, this is not bad at all. It's decently exciting. Now, the dampening of the suspension too, and just how comfortable it is pretty good. It's neither too boaty like some of its main competitors, but neither is it too firm either. There's just no one who's gonna complain about the suspension and the ride of this vehicle. And the same goes for noise, because you'd only hear some tire noise when you're going pretty fast on the highway, but in terms of wind noise, in terms of like engine noise and vibrations, you really don't feel nor hear any of it. Now, right now, it's been raining pretty hard. So yes, I would hear a little bit of extra rain noise, droplet noise from the huge panoramic sunroof. But I mean, that is a trade-off, and that is normal for any sunroof-equipped vehicle. So in that case, we can easily forgive that. Next would be the driving position, because despite being a non-body on frame MPV, like again, its main competitor, for example, the Innova, it still has a pretty decent enough, commanding enough driving position. Like, you see a lot in front of you, you see a lot towards your sides. There's not much blind spots either. The windshield is pretty big. Even the quarter panel here on the left and right ends, corners of the cars are easy to look at too. So yeah, driving this is just super easy. Steering is also incredibly light. Even if you put this into its sportiest setting, it doesn't really tighten up that much. So driving this is truly a breeze. Now, for the things I'm not a big fan of the M6 Pro, this was true with its predecessor, the GAC GN6. I found that the 6-speed automatic transmission in that car felt like a dual clutch transmission. It was pretty jerky in low speeds. And now that they've replaced it with a full dual clutch transmission, a 7-speed at that, well, it gotten a little bit more jerky, because I mean, dual clutch transmissions are inherently jerky, and you can really feel it in low city speeds. But once you get past I don't know, the biting point of the clutch, it becomes pretty smooth. And especially at high speeds, this car is a pretty smooth car to drive. Now, you do have to take note and be a little bit cautious when you're driving on ramps and inclines, because coming from a full stop at an incline, this car will roll back. So you kind of really have to mash the accelerator a little bit to make sure that that clutch engages quick enough. Now, second thing I'm not a big fan of with this would be, despite it having tons of power, and again, pretty exciting to drive, right? There is a pretty large amount, not only of throttle delay, but also of turbo lag. But yeah, just like the transmission, once you get past that initial delay, it goes pretty quickly and it gets pretty responsive towards the middle of the rev range. So, we've seen that the GAC M6 Pro is a pretty good MPV, but is it well priced? Well, yes, this already in its top-of-the-line trim, the GL trim, only costs 1,598,000 pesos. And at that price, it has so much features, so much tech, and so much comfort too, that can make it easily compete against the industry leader, the Toyota Innova. So this one really makes for a great alternative if you're looking for something a little bit more not only high-tech, but also pretty decent and fun to drive.